Hey guys, my name is Paul and I'm with NRK Prepper. If there's one video that you should watch this week all the way to the end, I recommend that it be this one. This video is for my Norwegian audience, but it's also very relevant to people that are in Northern Europe and to those of you who are in the Western countries. To give you a little bit of background about myself, I worked as a professional firefighter and I turned up to a lot of accidents, industrial accidents, road accidents, all kinds of things like that. And I came to realize that nobody ever thinks that tragedy is going to hit them or their family. Every time we turned up to an accident, there was blood and guts everywhere. People were shocked. They had no idea how to process what had just happened to them. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is going to be very, very uncomfortable, and it may offend some of you, but I ask you to follow through and watch this video to the end because it's really important. And I'm especially going to apologize to the Norwegians that are watching this because this is going to be extremely uncomfortable for you. Now, my family have been through famine. They've seen 3 famines over 3 generations. And the situation was so bad in some of those famines that people had resorted to cannibalism. Now, in the 50s and 60s, my mother was telling me, because she was born in China and grew up in China in Xinjiang province, things were so bad there that they couldn't play outside without an adult present because children were being taken and eaten. That was in the 50s and 60s. Now, it's a very uncomfortable topic that I'm going to be talking to you about today. So just strap your boots on and just hang on. Now, the question I have for you is, what will you do to survive? What will you do to survive? Now, in Bosnia, and I'm going to have a link to this article below, in Bosnia, a woman would basically rent herself out for 3 hours for a can of corned meat. Now, why was that the case? It was the case because the women that did that had nothing else to offer in order to secure some food for themselves and their families. So let that sink in for a second. What would you be willing to do to survive? And then the question is, what are you doing now? What are you actually doing now to make sure that you and your family have what you need to survive so that you don't have to resort to that in the future? What are you doing now? Or are you waiting until the situation gets that bad that you have to rent yourself out by the hour for a can of meat? Because this is the reality. Bosnia wasn't that long ago. The same's happening in Ukraine right now. There are places without food. We're seeing it in the West, or not the West, but in Europe. So this isn't a joke. Now, you have to think for a second that we can't rely on government. Government can only give you what they have taken from someone else. What happens when the government has nothing to take anymore? When there's no food, people don't have anything to give to the government. What do you think the government can then give you? They can't give you a thing. You'll have nothing to eat. And in Norway, they have 185,000 tons for a population of 5.3 million. What makes you think, for my Norwegian listeners and viewers, that you are going to be in the front of the line to receive anything? 185,000 tons isn't even going to scratch the surface of what is needed by this nation. And if you listen to the authorities, all you need to survive is 3 days worth of food. Do you understand what a joke the advice is that we're receiving right now from the authorities and the experts? And again, I'm going to have links to these articles in the description below if you don't believe what I'm saying. So, if the government has no food, they have no food to give to you. Now, I was in the supermarket about 2 weeks ago, and I just happened to bump into a farmer. And I was buying a bunch of butter to make ghee with, and we just struck up a conversation. He was asking me what I wanted all the butter for. I told him, well, oil doesn't store for very long before it goes rancid, so I make ghee. Anyway, he started telling me about how bad the situation is in Norway with regards to food. Now, this farmer, he lives in the area where I live, and he produces the seed stock for all the farmers. And he said not only are the farmers not producing food to eat, even the farmers that normally produce seed stock aren't bothering because the cost is so expensive. Now, he's doing it this year But he said there's so many farmers not growing any wheat in Norway. Now, on top of this, to make things even more real, we went to the cooperative to buy some chicken food for our chickens. And a young guy there, his family grows grain, and he said, oh, our family's not bothering to grow wheat. I don't know if they'll ever do it again with the diesel prices, the fertilizer prices, and now the grain prices. In Norway, they're killing the cows and the chickens and the pigs because they can't get the cheap grain from Ukraine and Russia. So now there's going to be a meat shortage and a grain shortage. So what will it take? For those of you that are watching this, what will it take for you to wake up and understand that we are literally on the doorstep of disaster here in Norway and in Europe and the West? What will it take? Will it take you being out begging for food and willing to rent yourself out for a couple hours for a can of food before you realize that there's a problem? Because this is real, and it's getting realer by the day. Now, I'm sorry if this is uncomfortable. I don't know how to sugarcoat this and make it sound any better, but it's a really bad situation now. And, you know, I've tried for months and months to wake people up to this, for years actually, and I've had such a hard time. Please, Norwegians, those of you that are watching this, please take this seriously. What can you do right now in order to start preparing? Because this isn't something that you do in a year or 2 years' time. What can you do right now? Well, start with the basics. Start storing your rice, your pasta, your wheat, oils. Start having a system now for purifying your water, for storing clean water, especially for you guys that are living in apartments out in the city. If the pumps turn off, you're not going to get water up into your apartments. There'll be no water for you. You have to have enough water stored to get you by. You have to have a way of purifying water. You need to think about these things right now. You need to think about your food storage. Now, I own a tech company, but I've also opened an online shop where we sell food storage solutions. Now, this is specific to Norway, but for those of you watching from other places of the world, I'll also have the link in the description below. Have a look. Get your ideas on how to store your food from our website. I've spent months and months and months of research to set up this system in a way that is practical. Learn from the work that I've done. You don't even have to buy from me. Just figure out a system to keep your food safe. There's no point buying food and storing it to just feed the rats and the mice and the mildew. But start today. Start doing something about it now. If you've got a flat screen TV and you've got the newest iPhone and all of those things, you cannot say to me that you don't have the money to be preparing. What will you say to your family and your children when they're starving and you've got the new iPhone? What will you say to them? Oh, I'm sorry, I wanted a new phone, but I just didn't want to store the food to feed you. Now, this is going to come across really, really brutal. But if you're not preparing and you're not storing food away right now, and you think you're going to go to your neighbor or to somebody else and expect them to feed you, you deserve to starve. You deserve to starve. That is an absolutely parasitic attitude to have, that someone else is going to come and take care of you. If you have a family, you are responsible for your family, not the government, not me, not anyone else. You yourself are responsible for your family and feeding them and putting clothes on their back and keeping them safe. Do not wait for anyone else to come and do that job. Another bit of advice that I have for you is forget the toys. Forget all the bug out stuff and all of this kind of thing. Start with the basics, the food, water and shelter. All the gadgets and gizmos and all that kind of crap. Your grandparents and great-grandparents didn't need any of that to survive. Think about how they actually survived and start copying that. Start squirreling your food away and storing it. Start growing your garden. Start getting the potatoes in the ground. Get yourself organized. You don't have much time left to do this. And then this is the last thing, and it's specific for the Norwegians. Norwegians, do you realize that the foreigners that have come to this country, the immigrants, have been saving food and have been prepping like crazy? Do you know that? Go and talk to some immigrants that you know and ask them how much food that they've got stored away. They'll play coy and they'll be like, oh, well, we've got a little... Man, the immigrants, they have been storing food. They've been preparing like crazy because most of them have come from countries that do not have good systems like Norway has got. But Norway is dependent on foreign aid and, or not foreign aid, but foreign grain and we will not be getting any foreign aid from anyone. We import over 50% of all of our food. So what we have now is what was harvested last year. What do you think we're going to have next year? The foreigners are preparing. You should be too. Now, feel free to send this video to other Norwegians that you know. I don't care if people don't like me. But what I'm telling you is the truth. And I want everyone to be prepared, because I don't want to see people having to starve. My family's been through it. It is not a good situation. And I hope that you listen to my warning. Please be prepared. If you haven't started, start today. Take it seriously. Good luck to all of you.